If you would please take your seats. I am Eileen Kelly Renato. I'm one of the Senior Vice Presidents here at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation. We are thrilled to have you all with us, and we are also thrilled to introduce you to a remarkable leader today. Dr. Yaro Fong-Olivares is the Executive Director of the Gloria Cordes Larson Center for Women and Business at Bentley University. In her role, Dr. Fong-Olivares leads the center's mission-based work to advance women's leadership in business from the classroom to the boardroom. She collaborates with industry experts and academics to determine wonderful programs for cutting-edge research, as well as best practices that can be utilized by all of us. In this session, she's going to dive into how each of us can use neuroscience and brain development to think about how to be a more effective leader. So things like decision-making, knowledge retention, and burnout can all impact how we make decisions and our effectiveness as leaders of our teams and of ourselves. So if we focus on those aspects, we can work on having best practices and skills developed to help us have long-term success. So I know you'll find this topic as interesting as I do. Please help me in welcoming Dr. Yaro Fong-Olivares.
Hi, everyone. It's good to be here. And thank you for the warm welcome. This is a beautiful room, especially during these times. And so I'm just very honored and grateful to be here. As mentioned, I work within the Center for Women in Business at Bentley University, and I do a lot of leadership development work with women plus leaders. Our work, it's around really promoting women leaders from the classroom to the boardroom. We include pre-college programming all the way to board development within our programs. A little bit about me. I'm an organizational psychologist, and I study both neuroscience and also system psychodynamics. And that's just big words to say I like to study what is not being spoken about in the workplace. As many of us probably know, as women leaders, we face a lot of different challenges. Sometimes there's a lot of conversation, and sometimes what's not said in the room is what really matters. And that's what I find fascinating and what I connect to the brain. I also focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Ooh, I said it. And I've always focused on this work, right? Just because of who I am when I show up and who I always pay attention to include everyone. And so it may not have been called DEI when I was starting my career back in 2003, but certainly it was part of who I was. I look at DEI from an organizational effectiveness lens, as many of us might do. The other piece that's really critical for you to know about the Center for Women in Business is that we really think about gender as an evolving definition. We use the term women plus to signal inclusion to our non-binary and trans friends and to really amplify the power of all women. And that's one of the privileges that I get to have because we are located within a university that really, again, the new generation is being more flexible in the way they're thinking about gender, while at the same time we work with corporate partners to also support their women plus development, understanding that cisgender women are still unfortunately very underrepresented in the corporate world, right? So it's acknowledging the both and. So I'll move on because I know I don't have as much time as I would like. But I'm going to talk to you about brain-based tools for leadership, sustainability, and longevity. And I want to start with a quick story. Back in 2009, first I want to start with you. So let's go back and look at the Slido and just ask you to, in one word, share how are you in this moment. And I know you had a full day here today. There we go. One word, I know it's a lot to ask. How are you feeling now? And really, how are you feeling, right? Think about your body, think about your energy, think about your heart rate, your body temperature. All of these things cue you as to how you're feeling and how you're doing. And oftentimes, we're moving so fast that we don't actually realize it. Anxious is a very common, actually, Anxiety is one of the things that I study as part of group development. When we are in a group, we experience a lot of anxiety, both because we want to feel like we belong and because we want to keep our individuality. So if you're feeling anxious, trust me, you're not alone. Hustling, I like that too. Lost, tired, overwhelmed. Rage, yes, that's my favorite so far. Unsettled, sad. Yeah, so there's a lot that we're holding in this room, and I want to acknowledge it. And what I want to invite you to do as we move through this discussion is to really think about how you practice self-compassion, right? So we're very good at practicing compassion for others. How are you practicing compassion for yourself? How are you giving yourself grace? How are you enabling yourself to be in this moment non-judgmentally? And we'll talk a little bit about what mindfulness is as I discuss it. So I'll keep moving, and I appreciate you sharing. We are going to do another pulse check later after we do a little bit of mindfulness. So I appreciate your honesty in sharing how you're doing right now. So as I was beginning to say, my journey began back in 2009 after I had a full decade of working in the nonprofit industry, and I experienced what now I know to be burnout. At the time, I just took a break and I decided to pivot. I went from a nonprofit job to personal training because I enjoy personal training and I just needed a break. I didn't feel the energy. I was becoming depressed. I worked all the time. During that time, I was lucky enough to connect with a mentor who had a startup organization in which she developed leadership development retreats for women of color in the social justice movement. And so part of that, she invited me to do all of the training and development and nature walks and sort of all the mindfulness for the women. About 30 women, different generations, different areas of work within different community efforts, including reproductive justice, including youth and education, right? And so again, I came from an education background, so I was just very happy to participate. And when I went there the first year, the thing that stood out to me the most is that the elders, so we have about 4 or 5 women who were in their 60s who had given their lives to nonprofit work, community work, really contributed to social change, and they all reported chronic illness. Again, I'm in my early 30s, it's a long time ago, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, that's odd, but I'm not making anything of it until a few years of doing this work. 3 years I participated. Every year, the elders had the same issue. They reported chronic illness. They reported not being able to enjoy retirement. They reported not being able to enjoy their grandchildren, which was the most important thing for them, right? And so again, at the time, I took this to mean sort of a wake-up call for myself to really think about my sustainability, right? So as I went back to work and went back to school to do my management degree, I really set up a lot of checks and balances for myself. Now, a little bit sidebar about me, I'm the oldest of 5. I helped my mother raise 4 children. I'm also very ambitious myself, as you probably figured out. And so I worked really hard. I work really hard now, I worked really hard then. So I know that given the options, I'm going to work, and that's what I'm going to choose because I'm very driven. So I decided to do these checks and balances, and I was doing great until something happened in 2020. Can somebody guess? So I lost all of my checks and balances. And as a very responsible citizen, there was also something else that happened. There was a surge in DEI work, which is the work that I was doing. So as a responsible human, I was doing DEI trainings with corporate partners, sometimes until midnight. Sometimes they started at 6 a.m. because we have companies that are located in different countries, in different time zones. And I remember, at first, I felt really motivated. I felt really excited because, again, lifelong activist, I really felt like I was making a difference. Eventually, I was becoming burned out, right? And it wasn't just the work and the delivery. It was also the taking in all of the stories that folks were sharing. So again, I experienced burnout. So on top of that, I decided that it would be a great idea to get a doctorate. So I'm here, I'm getting my doctorate, I'm doing a lot of DEI, I am slowly burning out. And this is the context of how I became a neuroscience warrior, how I learned about neuroscience. And I was never a sciencey person. I'm more of a sociology person. But when I learned about neuroscience and how it supports your leadership and your sustainability, I finally felt a little bit of hope. And now that I look back on it, it made me feel like I could actually take control of my life. Right? So I'm always going to be a hard worker. Many of you might relate to that. A lot of us really care about not only what we're doing, but how we're doing it and with who we're doing it, right? And so that's the story that I came to. So I want to just make sure that I share with you some of the things that I have discovered that are really, really helpful in terms of making sure that you don't burn out. And I want to make sure that you know that there's a difference between stress and burnout. Everybody experiences stress. Again, we saw it in the pulse check. I'm not going to tell you not to experience stress. However, you have a responsibility as a leader to make sure that you don't get to burnout. And I know that sounds, sometimes people are selfish or self-involved, right? But you are, by thinking about your sustainability, you're thinking about the sustainability of your organization. It's not for you. I know it's nice to think that it's for us. It's for the work you're doing, it's for the families, for the community. So I want you to just hold that as we're thinking about the different tools that we have here. So the first strategy that I use is called cognitive reframing. How many of you have heard of cognitive reframing? Excellent. Ahead of the game. I love it. So cognitive simply means thinking. And reframing means changing perspectives. And what cognitive reframing does, it helps you control your fight or flight response, which is through your amygdala. And so by controlling that, you're able to really preemptively interject when your brain is developing what we call an association. Association means when you behave in a particular way, your brain is looking for efficiency and effectiveness. So it's going to automatically try to predict what it needs to do next. This idea is called neurons that fire together, wire together. Yeah, it's one of the most radical things, but it's so simple, and yet I feel like everyone should know and should be able to practice it. And so what it looks like, for example, is when I'm at work and I'm having my normal day and I'm getting an email from a colleague that perhaps, the way that she approaches me may be a little bit stressful, right, let's say. And I know that every time I receive an email from that colleague, let's say I get some increased heart rate, maybe my temperature's a little higher. Sounds like some folks resonate with that. And so rather than letting yourself sort of become used to or accustomed to that, how might you think of this experience in a way that supports your cognitive reframing? So for example, this is an opportunity for me to be creative about how I handle this colleague. This is an opportunity for me to build community with this colleague. This is an opportunity for me to build my mindfulness, right? And so the idea here is this is not easy, and it will become easier the more we do it, or more automatic the way we do when we do it. However, it's important because if you don't interject these patterns, they become part of your baseline. And so then they become what's called subconscious, right? And that means that you won't have awareness of it, you don't have control over it, you can't look at it. Does that make sense for folks? Okay, so how many of you think this is something that you might try? Excellent. And the piece about cognitive reframing is that unlike the emotional experience that we're having, which is often automated, we have a power to think, to control our thoughts and to preemptively manage our emotions by controlling our thoughts. And that's the beauty of cognitive reframing that I really, really appreciate, is that, yes, as women, we have a reputation that we're emotional, or now in times of really high stress, we have a right to be emotional. We're human. In terms of what's happening, and being cognitively aware really supports interrupting those patterns. The other piece that's really critical is mindfulness. How many of you have a mindfulness practice? Great, more than usual. Kudos on you. And the thing about mindfulness that I really want to emphasize today is it's very common. You can find a mindfulness video pretty much anywhere on the internet. The piece that is really critical is that mindfulness is not something that you should be relegating as a separate activity. Mindfulness is a mindset. It's how you approach your day-to-day. It's how you want to show up when you're stuck behind somebody and you're late for that performance evaluation and you're actually running the meeting and you're like, okay, I'm really stressed, right? Or when somebody cuts you off and you have a lot of words for them. You want to get into that experience of, okay, you want to access the mindfulness state in order to manage yourself. Again, there's probably a theme around here in terms of self-management. Now, mindfulness itself has been researched plenty. It's one of the most researched concepts in the literature of neuroscience, and it supports memory consolidation, it supports anxiety prevention, it supports well-being, supports even physical health, and all of those things. What I'm here to tell you is mindfulness is about how you do it and the consistency of how you do it. Not about on a weekly basis, I go to yoga and I do mindfulness in my yoga studio, but about 1 minute every day, whenever that is available to you, so that there is a consistency, because what you want with mindfulness is to have it readily available. It's almost like a superpower. Does that make sense to folks? Right, so it's not the time, it's not how long you can do it, and anyone can do mindfulness. I know folks sometimes are intimidated, I know I was. Sometimes I hear folks, I don't have enough time, right? And so really, I just invite you to start with 1 minute, and we're gonna do a quick 3-minute mindfulness, and then we're going to do another check-in. But I really want to make sure that you stay with that, especially in these times when we have so much going on. So we're gonna do a quick mindfulness exercise.
How can we call more for you today?
That's not what we wanna do.
Or more. Now I get it.
Wow, and Jiffy Lube.
You may have heard
All
of
right,
different
folks, so, oops. Everyone,
Enhance
please.
your GMP contamination control strategy with SteraMist Decon from Surface Spraying. Automated full-room fogging for air and
Okay, this is gonna work.
surface
So
decontamination
everyone,
throughout your facility. Integration and complete custom build-ins to routine and emergency service.
skip.
Visit SteraMist.com.
Thank you. All right, so let's follow this meditation. Now that we've had a good laugh,
Or perhaps you
everyone,
breathe in,
please get
explore
comfortable,
breathing for
uncross
4.
your legs.
Hold for 4. Exhale for 4. Hold for 4. And again, breathe in for 4.
Try to
This is
listen to the
different
guided
in that
meditation
you
to the best
yourself
of your
will
ability.
create what the pattern is. I personally have found that my favorite anchoring breath is 3 counts in, holding for 2 counts at the top, and then exhaling for 11, and not holding it all at the bottom before returning back to 3. Now, this is just something that I have personally found to feel best to me. I invite you now to take a big, deep breath in on your next inhale, and then exhale it out completely, moving however feels good. And on the very next breath in, trust the count that comes to you for how many breaths in. And then when you reach the top, trust the count that comes to you for how many counts to hold it. And then when you exhale, trust the number that comes to you for how many counts to exhale. And the same at the bottom. And when you return to the inhale, repeat that pattern for yourself. Just continue to breathe in this pattern, keeping all of your awareness on your breath. Noticing how when you focus on the count and the breath together, it's a lot easier to stay here in the moment with your own breath. Stay with this cycle of breathing for as long as you wish. And when you're ready to end this practice, take your time, slowly stretching and moving how you feel called, and gently blinking your eyes open whenever you're ready.
Everyone take a deep breath in, exhale, and you can be loud. That's another thing that I encourage. And now we're gonna do a second pulse check and test this out. How are you feeling right now after doing that very brief mindfulness exercise? So let's go back to the word cloud. I know I have questions about that, but we only have a few minutes. Definitely catch me after to tell me more about that. I'm glad to know that we have a little bit of progress, and that was a very brief meditation. And as I said, really the idea here is consistency, right? So for some of you, maybe this is something you do all the time. Oiled, I like that one too. Please find me after for that one. This is not being recorded, right? All right. Back to the main event. So this is what I think it's, again, I was speaking in this subject. This is something that usually folks have not heard of, so I'll ask again. How many of you have heard of the Healthy Mind Platter? Yeah, so consistency. And again, this is one of those things that is very easy and very accessible for anyone to really get in touch with. It's something that is fashioned after the nutrition plate. And I'm just gonna share a little bit about how to use it in terms of balancing your day so that you can optimize your brain functioning. The Healthy Mind Platter, as I said, really fashioned after the nutrition plate. It's composed of sleep, physical activity, focus time, connection time with other humans, playtime, downtime, and time in. There should be a bookmark going around that shows these things, and is intended to be a daily guide for your life, right? So most of the time we do sleep, hopefully. So that's already in. And they're also in an order of importance. So I always say, if you have the option of going to the gym or sleeping in, sleep in. Sleeping is when you have cell regeneration, healing. Even there's some research that shows that we even process trauma when we're sleeping, right? So some of those dreams that you're having are actually you healing from experiences that you've had throughout the day, right? So pretty critical. And so I really do want to emphasize the importance of sleep when it comes to your brain. The second piece is physical activity. And physical activity, I mentioned that I was a personal trainer. It's what you enjoy, right? It's not about there's one size fits all. If what you enjoy is walking around, or if what you enjoy is watching Beyonce videos and dancing in the living room, please do that. And some of you do. I know from experience, some of my colleagues, that's what they do. But really, again, I can't stress enough, the brain likes consistency. It wants to be able to predict what we're doing. The other piece that's really critical, and again, I'm not debating with you about multitasking. Multitasking in the world that we live in today is something that we probably cannot avoid. But you need to spend some time during the day focusing on one thing. How many of you do that? Maybe it's reading the newspaper, online. So I really encourage that. That's something that's very important for your brain, because otherwise it's too much overload, too much information coming, and you lose your power to make your brain focus, right? So it's, again, making sure that you have control and you have some management aspect to your brain. Connection time is the time that we spend with one another. So again, working from home, hybrid environment, and making sure that you're getting your full family life. It's really important for the brain. Playtime is something that us working adults have a really hard time with. And playtime is not playing with your kids, because that's still a chore. Actually, and it's not actually, I know, surprise. And it's not actually video game time, even though I see that there's a video game icon. It's actually just time being childlike and letting your brain wander, right? And that really promotes your creativity, flexibility, your ability to adapt, right? All very important things. Downtime is time that has no purpose. And how many of you do that? Or at least, excellent, amazing. This is not something that we are good at, because it's not time focusing, it's not time playing, it's really just time being. Some of you are skeptical about this, I can tell in your face. I can tell in your faces. And again, this is something I want to acknowledge, that this is not easy, right? But the downtime, what I do is I spend 15 minutes in my car before I go into my office just staring at the trees. It's really amazing. And then I go in and I'm such a better human. You can ask my team. Or maybe not. And then time in is time reflecting on your day, right? So reflecting on, and it could be, now that I am a little busier, I actually have Otter, where I actually have voice reflections. And it really has been amazing for me. It could be a few minutes. I grew up journaling. I'm a big journaler, introverted, and I like to reflect. So whatever that is for you, I really encourage you to use the technology. So again, one thing that I want to re-emphasize here is these are in order of importance for your brain. So in absence of choice, choose sleep and then go down the line. So again, just want to recap to finish the talk. Our recommendations are pay attention to your burnout rate and stress, right? So now that you have a little more information, you know yourself, we all have different baselines. Make sure you're paying attention to your stress levels and make sure you're interrupting and making sure that you are preventing burnout. Really think about practicing how you reframe and also how you practice mindfulness and access it on a regular basis. Please don't come out of here thinking I have to adopt a mindfulness practice regimented and thinking about how it's relegated to a separate activity. If you come up with something that really helps you, also please let us know. And then finally, bookmark the Healthy Mind Platter. I can't stress enough how much that has helped me, including those 15 minutes of doing nothing, to make sure that I, at the end of the day, feel complete, ready, and also ready to start the next day. So again, I hope you take these recommendations. I want to finish the talk by just reminding everyone how I started, which is you are your biggest asset. You have to protect yourself, you have to nurture yourself, and you are also your organization's biggest asset. I know that for a lot of us, we think of leadership as selfless, as giving back. But you have to pour into your own cup. I know you've heard this saying before. You have to pour into your own cup before you pour into others. So it's a responsibility. In my mind, it's a responsibility of each of us to be sustainable and to be here for the long run. Please stay in touch with us. It's been great to be here with you. Thank you.